Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A large trial shows the coronavirus vaccine developed by the University of Oxford is highly effective at stopping people developing COVID-19 symptoms. Interim data suggests 70% protection, but the researchers say the figure may be as high as 90% by tweaking the dose. The results will be seen as a triumph, but come after Pfizer and Moderna vaccines showed 95% protection. However, the Oxford vaccine is far cheaper and is easier to store and get to every corner of the world than the other two, with experts saying it will play a pivotal role in fighting the pandemic at a world level. President Trump's campaign has distanced itself from a lawyer who made dramatic claims of voter fraud at several media events. Sidney Powell claimed without evidence last week that electronic voting systems had switched millions of votes to President-elect Joe Biden and said he won due to communist money. Mr. Biden is projected to win 306 votes in the US Electoral College, which determines who becomes president, far above the 270 needed to win. The United Nations has urged Ethiopian authorities to ensure the protection of civilians as the army plans to attack the capital of the northern region of Tigray. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced a 72-hour deadline for the region's fighters to surrender. The army warned the capital's 500,000 residents that they would encircle and potentially shell, urging citizens to flee, but the Tigray People's Liberation Front has vowed to keep fighting. Hong Kong democracy activist Joshua Wong and 2 fellow campaigners are facing the prospect of prison after pleading guilty to unlawful assembly during last year's mass protests. Mr. Wong appeared in court on Monday and said he expects to go to jail, possibly facing 5 years behind bars. The activist revealed he decided to change his plea after talking to his lawyer.
Perhaps the authorities wish me to stay in prison, but I'm persuaded that neither prison bars, nor election bans, nor any other arbitrary power will stop us from activism. What we are doing now is to explain the value of freedom to the world through our compassion to whom we love, so much that we are willing to sacrifice the freedom of our own.
The 3 were charged with organising and taking part in an unauthorised assembly. During the 2019 protests, Hong Kong's police headquarters became the target for protesters who threw eggs and sprayed graffiti. Polls have closed in Burkina Faso, where people have been voting in presidential and parliamentary elections. Voting passed peacefully, but some polling stations in eastern areas affected by a jihadist conflict had to close early due to security threats. Brutal attacks have forced more than 1 million civilians from their homes in the past 2 years alone. Campaigning was halted for 48 hours last week, following a deadly ambush on soldiers in the north of the country. President Roch Kabore is seeking a second 5-year term, with 13 opposition candidates challenging him. Belarus police have detained more than 200 people in the capital Minsk, following the latest in months of anti-government protests since the disputed presidential election in August. Thousands took to the streets of the Belarusian capital, and police used stun grenades to disperse the crowds. That's according to several of Belarus media outlets. Human rights groups say 205 people have been detained so far. The Interior Ministry has confirmed there have been detentions, saying those being held had been disturbing public order and resisting police officers, but it did not give any numbers. Opponents of President Alexander Lukashenko have staged regular protests since August, accusing him of rigging the election. The head of African football, Ahmad, has been banned for 5 years by FIFA following an ethics investigation by the world's football governing body. FIFA said in a statement the Independent Ethics Committee had found Mr. Ahmad guilty of offering and accepting gifts and other benefits and misappropriation of funds. FIFA had sanctioned him with a ban from all football-related activity at both national and international level for 5 years. It also fined him 200,000 Swiss francs. And finally, how about this for a definition of monkey business? British musician Paul Barton was mobbed by the animals who tugged his hair, stole his music and climbed all over his piano. Not put off by Barton's rendition of Greensleeves, Beethoven's Für Elise and Michael Nyman's Diary of Love, some were eager to share his stool while others pounced upon the musician's shoulders while he played. The musician is hoping his music can raise awareness at a time when Thailand's tourism hiatus means there are far fewer visitors to feed the monkeys and less funds allocated for their welfare. And that's your international news around the world in 5 now. Back to the Channel studios in Lagos.